welcome everybody. Welcome to the Communities Talk segment on alcohol and the brain. And we have here some guests with us. Very excited. Victoria and Henry, you can tell, taking time out of their busy lives. Victoria's got some important tweets to send out or Instagram posts or something else. And Henry is just like, look, I don't even know where I go to middle school. I've been on this place for 3 years. I'm not even sure what they call it. But they're here with us. And I love having them here because they're the reason why we do this work. So let me put up some slides to get started here and share my screen with you all. What you're about to see is what life looked like about 2 years ago for me, a guy who traveled around and would speak in front of large groups of students all wearing the same shirt for some reason. Like a cult or something. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, that was me speaking, kids shoulder to shoulder. I miss those days. You tell a joke, they love it. They can't get enough. They're eating it up. I miss that. I want those days back. My life, I mean, I can be totally honest with you, completely changed starting in March 2020. I can tell you that I used to travel around speaking to large groups. And within, it was about 24 to 48 hours. I went from traveling speaker guy to mediocre homeschool dad, just at the kitchen table, like with my kids trying to do their work. And but I remember bragging to my wife, like, in order for me to lose my business, they'd have to close every school in the country. And March 12th, 2020, I was like, oh my God. My wife was like, remember what you said? I was like, yes, I do. And if ever there was a time in my life where I thought to myself, geez, these are the moments that people probably drink alcohol, right? This is what they do. They reach out for it to try to cope with this incredible stressor. My whole life in movies, even in my personal life, I'd hear people talk about this. And alcohol is a powerful anxiolytic, which means it reduces anxiety. And here I was experiencing tremendous anxiety as a result of the pandemic. And for me, it was fear of losing my house, losing my income, as layered anxiety. And I had those thoughts like, maybe this is why people drink, but I don't drink for a bunch of different reasons. I don't do it. And I didn't start. And I'm glad I didn't, because honestly, you lay down so many of your habits when you're in high school and middle school, and how you cope with stress when you're young is somewhat predictive of how you're going to cope with it later on. So back to those slides. And I'll show you, what am I going to show you next? Yeah, there we go. So the age of your first drink matters, right? You start drinking at 14, get drunk, say once a month, continue that behavior going forward. You have a nearly 50% chance of having alcohol problems in your life. When I say problems, I mean dependence. See that word down there? Dependence. I imagine when you're in middle school and high school, you're thinking about independence. And here's a drug that's going to increase your risk for dependence. So my message is just wait. You owe it to your brain to wait. If you wait till in your 20s, you reduce the risk down to about 10% of those who will have problems of dependence in their life. Now, let me ask Victoria and Henry, who do you think still has a problem in their 20s? They're still 10%. Who do you think those 10% are? Why are they still at risk in their 20s? Any ideas?
I guess just people who are really stressed. Like they have big stressors.
Yeah. You could have gone through a lot of stressors, right? A lot of adverse situations. Anything else that puts them at risk, even as young adults? How about their genetic history, right? What do you know about the genetic predisposition for addiction? Anything?
I just know it exists.
Yeah.
So like people just genetically more prone to that.
Yeah, some people are. It's like an allergy to some folks. So raise your hand and I'm going to raise mine along here. If you have a genetic history in your family, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, siblings, who've had problems with alcohol or other drugs at some point in their life. When I say problems, I mean dependence. So Henry's got the hand up, and I'm so glad that you know this, Henry. Here you are, 7th grade, you're aware of your history. And that's great. Have you had family tell you the history of others?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen it for yourself, or you just been told about it?
No.
No, you just been told about it. Well, both are good and important. I can't tell you how great it makes me feel when I hear from a student who says, look, I don't drink because there's a history in my family and it's like an allergy to me. And that's fantastic to hear. And so the next question is, well, why? Like, why is it that some people are genetically predisposed to, let's say, become dependent on alcohol? And this next slide is might be pretty interesting for you. And it looks complicated, a lot of colors there. It's all kind of break it down. There's a theory on addiction, and they call it the dopamine hypothesis of addiction. So anybody know what dopamine is? Heard of that one?
Yeah.
I love the answer. Yeah. What is dopamine?
It's just the chemical in your brain. It gets released and it makes you feel good.
Yes, makes you feel good. Thank you, Victoria. It's a chemical that makes you feel good. So what this study did, and it's kind of ingenious, because the theory was, look, people who have addictions, be it to alcohol or other drugs, probably have less dopamine being released in a very specific part of their brain. It's called the ventral striatum. It's on the test. You might want to write this down. But anyone who studies the brain knows that the ventral striatum is connected to this pleasure network, right? So they wanted to look at that specific area of the brain and see how much dopamine gets released when the brain gets stimulated. So they gave what they called the healthy group, the people who don't have addiction in their history, they gave them a stimulant. It was like a drug, essentially, in a controlled situation. And they gave that same stimulant to people who had a history of alcohol dependence. They call it the alcohol group, or cocaine dependence, or methamphetamine dependence, or heroin dependence. And what you're looking at here is fascinating, because what do you see? You see the gray, quote unquote, healthy group having a very strong reaction to the stimulant, and the drug groups are not. You look at the alcohol group in particular, you don't see a huge response from dopamine. And it's like, what does this tell you about alcohol dependence? So let me throw the question back to you, Victoria, Henry. What do you think this says about the brain of someone who's dependent on alcohol?
It just takes more for them to feel good.
Yes. Bingo, right? So they go to the party, right? And they have the first drink of alcohol. How do you predict their brain's going to respond? Is it going to light up like, woohoo, tons of dopamine, this is great? Or is it going to act like, I don't get it? It was like first drink done and I don't really feel anything.
Yeah, it's just not gonna really react as much. It'll take more.
Right. It'll take more. So they're more prone to having a second and a third and a fourth. And now maybe the brain lights up and they get it. They're like, oh, now I feel it. And so the next party, they're more apt to have 4 or 5 again. And that puts them on the road to dependence for sure. And this, again, the dopamine theory or dopamine hypothesis of addiction is sort of an idea, a concept in neuroscience that's been kicked around for the last several years. And it may help in treatment someday, but it really, I think, aids us in understanding how this all works. The next slide I'm going to show you is when people are acutely drunk, right? They go out and they've had too much to drink. What you're looking at here on the left is a brain with a blood alcohol content of 0. And then you go to moderately drunk at 0.05. And then the high group there, which is the legally drunk in every state in the US, 0.10. Now, answer me this. How much less blood flow do you think there is there in the frontal lobe of the brain from the 0% group to the 0.1% group? Any guesses? How much less red and yellow is there?
Significantly less.
Significantly, yes. Absolutely. About half, do you think?
Yeah.
Yep. Now that's the frontal lobe of the brain during a decision-making test. People are in a machine that's measuring blood flow, and they have about half the blood flow in the frontal lobe while trying to make decisions. What do you think that's going to do to somebody's decision-making abilities?
It's gonna be slower.
Yeah.
You're gonna take less things into account.
Absolutely. It's going to create havoc. And what I'm going to show you next is a clip from Saturday Night Live. We won't watch the whole thing because you get the gist pretty quickly, but it's basically the brain, the sober brain and the drunk brain. And it's a group of girls who are about to go out on Halloween, and you see the difference between the sober brain and the drunk brain. And I think you're really going to enjoy this. Yes, it was playing there. Can you hear it?
Yep.
Megan, you look so cute.
Oh, thanks. Janelle, will you like fluff the back of my hair? I feel like it's getting flat.
Yeah. You guys, I love how like we're keeping it
They're
so
getting
chill
ready.
this year.
I know.
So we're just grabbing dinner and then heading to Ryan's for a bit?
Yeah.
You guys, let's do a selfie.
Oh, okay.
Observe their behavior.
All right, ready? Smile. This is gonna be such a fun night. This night
My credit card is from and I don't have it. Who has it? Please hurry up. I need to get pizza. Oh, pizza.
Stop sharing it there because I think you guys get the idea. But what did you see? Can you describe for me what it was like before they went out and then after?
Well, there's just it was just a lot of comparison. Like after they couldn't remember as well. Like that was pretty clear. They couldn't remember what happened before. They had terrible coordination.
For sure. Henry, what do you think of their emotions?
I
I
feel like their emotions definitely, they were very like happy at the beginning and they were very negative at the end.
Yeah, so there was some anger there. They were fighting with their friends. Were there any tears?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
saw tears, right?
Messed up all their beautiful makeup.
Yeah, they cared so much about how they looked and what they're wearing, and then they're lying in the disgusting street. So the point is that any human being could render themselves like that if alcohol interferes with their frontal lobe functioning. And I like the clip. It's funny, but it's real, and you get a nice appreciation for it. Now, this study here that you're looking at was a longer term one they did on twins. Kind of amazing. They were looking at these twins from the time they were teenagers all the way into their 20s. One of the twins abused alcohol during that period of time, and the other one didn't. And what you're seeing is actually thinning of the gray matter in portions of the brain like the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe. So there were physical changes to the brain over time. And they used the twins as a sort of a control, right? So the twin that wasn't drinking, because their brains are so similar, everything looks so similar with twins, that was like the control group. And the fact that they saw changes in the brain over a period of 10 years was really fascinating to the scientists, because alcohol really is having an impact on brain development. So I'm just curious, Henry, Victoria, I mean, what's your reaction to that news? I don't know if it's the first time you've heard something like that or seen that kind of data, but how does it make you feel when you see the fact that alcohol could be changing, a teenager's brain?
Not surprised. Like
Yeah.
I kind of knew that,
Mhm.
but it's not great.
How does it
fact
make
that,
you feel when you hear maybe a classmate blow off, getting wasted or abusing alcohol is no big deal, having seen the evidence?
I think it's just sad. Like I'll just see that and then I guess it was their choice, but I don't know. I feel more sad than I do judgmental of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a sadness that I don't understand why they didn't get the message. Maybe they did and they didn't believe it. Maybe alcohol is just so rewarding to them that they don't care. All of which are sad, right? Henry, how about you? Any reactions?
I feel like I feel the same way that Victoria does.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. A few more slides. And I think this one is one that is very much true. Alcohol suppresses respiration and causes death. And every year, we see articles about young people, college students, I think of all the time. There's alcohol overdoses on campuses and people die, but it's not something that's on the minds of young people, right? They're not thinking about this every day, and they don't think it's going to be them. So it's very hard to get this message across. In fact, I tend to try to focus more on here and now. So what is that decision-making impairment going to look like to you right now, rather than this, sort of extreme example of someone overdosing. Maybe it'll be you, maybe it won't, at a party weeks from now, that kind of thing. So I am someone who doesn't like to just present on, hey, alcohol is bad, here's what it does, good night. I like to offer a solution. And so for me, I wrote a book called A Better High, and it's all about the science of natural highs. And natural highs are just activities that change the brain chemistry and release dopamine in a way that's good for us, and it's good for your brain development. So here's some of my natural highs. I love getting outside, biking, performing, making people laugh, eating real food that comes from the ground. We got hikes in the woods and friends and team sports, all these things. But humans are not the only ones who love a good natural high. This video was from the Smithsonian Zoo this past winter, and you're looking at a panda sledding down a hill on its back. To me, that says it all, right? Like, who wouldn't want to do this if they could? My favorite part is next. And maybe up in Maine, you can do this for more months than we can where I live in New Jersey. But it's a lot of fun. And the brain lights up when you're having a natural high. Look at the laughing brain and how much blood flow there is throughout. And here's the neat thing. There's no way you can watch like a hilarious comedian and then wake up the next day and be like, oh, that comedian was so funny, I'm hungover. Well, but why not though, right? Why not? You had a great time. And shouldn't you feel worse? No, the brain is all about balance. It's called homeostasis, trying to stay in balance. And so it's never going to have you experience a natural high and make you feel so bad the next day that you can't get up. But alcohol doesn't work like that. Alcohol forces your brain into this certain emotional state, and it depletes neurotransmitters and can make you feel awful and make you physically feel sick the next day. If you use enough, of course, over time, you're going to need to take the drug just to feel normal. What else? Look at music, lighting up the brain, making us feel really good. There's certain types of songs that give us the chills, where it just takes us to another place. Do either one of you have a song that gives you the chills?
Yeah, you should hear what we're doing in Chamber Singers right now. It's kind of funny. It's not a normal song, little scary.
Scary song as well. It's getting close to Halloween, right?
Yeah, it's called Fire. So
that's cool. How about you, Henry? You have a song that gives you the chills?
I like indie rock kind of music.
Yeah.
Right now my favorite song is Money by the Drums.
I have to listen to that one. I don't know that one. So many people will take alcohol, for example, to sort of forget their worries, right? They had a hard day. You hear that all the time. I had a tough day. Give me a drink. Well, music can play that role of taking you to another place. And even if you know what you're doing, you're purposely playing the song to get out of your head for a while, it still works. That's the beauty of it. Exercise, too, has a profound impact on your brain. It actually improves your memory by increasing a brain structure, the volume of the brain structure called the hippocampus. Exercise reduces stress while increasing happiness scores, all the things that are promised by so many different drugs, but yet exercise does it and has tremendous benefit for you, partly because if you exercise outside, you're in nature. Nature calms the mind. You go for a walk in the woods for 90 minutes, and you're actually going to reduce a hormone called cortisol in your bloodstream. Cortisol is a stress hormone. You reduce that, less stress. Pretty sweet. So outdoors, you should know there's water, there's wind, there's bird sounds. All these things are very calming to our nervous system. And if you're looking to reduce anxiety, sure, you could turn to alcohol, and for a short period of time, it may reduce that anxiety, but you're going to notice it flood back to you when the alcohol leaves your system. But you go for the hike outside for 90 minutes, it might not be as intense a reduction. It might take a little while to feel better, but you're going to come back. You're going to feel more positive, feel less anxious. All these are tremendous things. And so my recommendations are try to move around for your mood. I honestly, I exercise more for my mental health these days than my cardiovascular health. Afternoon is when I meditate to be more resilient, and the evening is when I cook and eat and try to be social. Do calls like this, Zoom calls, have a few laughs. And I want to thank you so much for being a part of this. And I'll end by just saying, I love to surf. I surfed in Maine. I love it. But surfing on the East Coast taught me the most beautiful waves. They come from the biggest storms. And I want anyone watching this to know that the storms of life are going to hit us. But ultimately, if you handle them on life's terms, right? You don't rush to some chemical to cope, but you deal with them head on. It's going to be hard for a bit, but eventually there's this energy that's produced, right? This opportunity to take advantage of that energy from that disappointment, from that pain, that loss, that failure, and the beautiful waves will follow.